All right, let's dive into one of Shakespeare's most mesmerizing final plays, The Tempest. It's a story that kicks off with total chaos, but is really about control, power, and in the end, about letting it all go. So the play just throws you right into the deep end. There's this ship being ripped to pieces by a massive storm. You could almost hear the panic and the splintering wood. It feels like a terrible, random act of nature. But on this island, nothing is ever quite what it seems. And that's the first big question you ask yourself. This isn't just bad weather, it's a weapon. This storm is targeted. It has a purpose, which means it has a creator. So who on earth could be powerful enough to command the elements like this? To really get this storm, you have to rewind the clock. Because this whole thing is an effect, and the cause is a story of ugly betrayal that went down 12 years before the play even starts. And here he is. Meet our string puller, Prospero. Now, he's a ridiculously powerful magician, but he wasn't always in exile on a remote island. He was once the Duke of Milan, a title that was stolen right out from under him. And here's the backstory, the path to his exile. 12 years ago, Prospero was so buried in his books, his secret studies of magic, that he kind of neglected his duties as Duke. He trusted his brother, Antonio, to handle things. Big mistake. Antonio teamed up with a rival king, Alonso, grabbed power, and tossed Prospero and his little daughter Miranda out to sea. They were lucky to survive, washing up on the island they now call home. So yeah, make no mistake, that storm is not an act of nature. It is 100% an act of revenge. And the ship caught in it? Well, it just so happens to be carrying every single person who wronged him. King Alonso, his treacherous brother Antonio, all of them. After a dozen years of waiting, Prospero is bringing his past crashing down on his present. So this brings us to Prospero's magical chessboard. He isn't just looking for simple, bloody revenge. No. His plan is way more intricate than that. The island is his board, and every survivor is a piece he's about to move. And here's the master plan. He conjures the storm to wreck their ship, but, and this is important, he brings them all to the island safely. Then he uses his magic to split them up into specific groups. This way, he can guide their journey, test them, and manipulate them to get exactly what he wants. Now, he doesn't do this alone. He has two very different servants. On one side, you have Ariel, this airy spirit who does all the magical heavy lifting, bound to serve Prospero until he's finally freed. On the other side, you've got Caliban, the long-suffering native of the island, enslaved by Prospero and just simmering with resentment. And just look at how he plays them. It's brilliant. He steers the king's son, Ferdinand, to meet his daughter Miranda, hoping they'll fall in love and create a future political alliance. He leaves the nobles to their own devices, and what happens? They immediately start plotting to kill the king, the exact same betrayal as before. And then there's the comic relief. A couple of drunk servants meet Caliban and cook up a ridiculous plot to kill Prospero. Each little group shows their true colors. And the real genius of it is that none of them have a clue they're being watched. Through Ariel, who fills the island with strange music and illusions, Prospero has eyes and ears everywhere. Every plot is monitored. Every single move is controlled. Okay, so all of this leads to the climax of the play. And it's not a big sword fight, it's an internal battle, a pivotal moment of reflection for Prospero himself. His plan has worked perfectly. The final pieces are in place. The men who betrayed him are trapped, scared, and completely at his mercy. He holds all the power. And right at this moment, Ariel mentions how sorry he feels for the prisoners. And that hits Prospero. He says this amazing line, "The rarer action is in virtue than in vengeance." He realizes that mercy is actually a greater, more noble act than just getting even. So this is it, the ultimate question. For 12 long years, he's dreamed of this moment. Now that he has the absolute power to crush his enemies, after all that planning, will he choose revenge? Nope, he chooses forgiveness. In one of the most powerful moments in all of Shakespeare, he decides to break the cycle of vengeance. And that one single choice is what puts the whole broken world back together. This is where we get to see a world restored, all thanks to forgiveness, freedom, and an eye toward the future. And everything just starts falling into place. It's this great unraveling. Prospero reveals himself. He calls them out on their crimes. King Alonso is filled with remorse, which is the key. And then Prospero announces a full pardon for everyone. To seal the deal, he reveals that his daughter and the king's son are getting married, uniting the two kingdoms. But maybe the most shocking part of this whole restoration is what he gives up. He vows to give up his magic. All of it. He does this to rejoin human society. He literally breaks his magic staff and says he's going to drown his book of spells. He is choosing to be the Duke of Milan again, to be a father, to be a person, instead of an all-powerful magician on a lonely island. So now that we have the story, let's talk about the Tempest's lasting magic. We gotta unpack some of the symbols and themes that make this play so amazing. First, the storm itself, the Tempest. It's obviously not just a storm. It represents the violent, chaotic mess that treachery creates. It's the symbol for the total disruption of the natural order of things. And what about the magic books? They symbolize his incredible power, for sure, but they also symbolize the very flaw that led to his exile, his obsession with study over his duty to his people, giving them up as him finally admitting that. You know, there's this really cool theory. Since The Tempest was one of the last plays Shakespeare wrote on his own, many scholars believe Prospero giving up his magic is a metaphor for Shakespeare himself putting down his pen and saying farewell to the theater. When you boil it all down, the play is just swimming in these huge themes. You've got power and how it can be used or abused. You see the cycle of betrayal and revenge. But ultimately, you see that the path to redemption, to fixing things, is through remorse and forgiveness. And the play ends with this famous moment where Prospero speaks directly to the audience, to us. He says his magic is gone, and he can only be set free from the island by our applause. He's literally asking us for his freedom. It's incredible. And that leaves us with one final big question to think about. What power do we gain when we choose to let go? In the end, Prospero's greatest act of strength wasn't summoning a storm. It was letting go of his anger, his magic, and his need for control. Kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it?